The Mysterious Old Radio Listening Society podcast.
Welcome to the Mysterious Old Radio Listening Society, a podcast dedicated to suspense, crime, and horror stories from the golden age of radio. I'm Eric.
I'm Tim.
And I'm Joshua. We love mysterious old-time radio stories, but do they stand the test of time? That's what we're here to find out.
This week I've chosen an episode of The Weird Circle for us entitled The Doll. The Weird Circle adapted famous creepy stories from the world of literature, including the works of Edgar Allan Poe, Samuel Johnson, Charles Dickens, Robert Louis Stevenson, Charlotte Bronte, and in this case, Fitz-James O'Brien. O'Brien was perhaps best known for his works The Diamond Lens and What Was It? A Mystery. The Doll was first published as The Wondersmith in the 1859 issue of the Atlantic Monthly.
78 episodes of The Weird Circle were recorded in the RCA studios in New York between 1943 and 1945. The series is largely remembered for its distinctive introduction, in which the announcer calls for the bellkeeper to toll the bell to indicate that the listeners had once again joined them in the circle. First broadcast on Christmas Eve of 1944, and keeping children nervous about their toys, this is The Doll.
It's late at night, and a chill has set in. You're alone, and the only light you see is coming from an antique radio. Listen to the sounds coming from the speaker, listen to the music, and listen to the voices.
Out of the past, phantoms of a world gone by speak again their immortal tale. The Doll.
Quiet, quiet. I'll have the bailiff clear the court if this continues. Quiet. Now then, did the court understand the defense correctly? The defendant wishes to make a statement.
Yes, Your Honor. I wish to make it regarding the death of the fortune-teller, Madame Philomel of Golash Street. My name, as I have said, Your Honor, is Frederick Hippie. I am an inventor, and have fashioned many strange things. In Golash Street I was, and still am, called the Wondersmith. And what I wish to say now is not merely a change in testimony. No, Your Honor, it is more than that. It is a confession. I am only a man who hated his stepdaughter with a burning passion. Hated her who through all her life crossed me, whose willfulness made of my days a running sore, whose very youth and strength angered my aging eyes. Yes, hated her, and to make her life suffer was my one consuming ambition. Now she is out of my reach. The young man, Solon, her foolish and scrawny lover, is innocent of anything in the death of the fortune-teller Philomel. I am the guilty one. The events began when I first saw them together, Solon and my stepdaughter, Zonila. Solon had a bookstore, a hovel of a place across the street. On this afternoon, he was reading to my stepdaughter, Zonila, and the pleasure on her face angered me. I could hear Solon's voice from where I was, standing in front of my shop with Philomel, the fortune-teller.
Let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments. Love is not love.
Wondersmith, your little bud's blooming in the sun.
Zonila! Zonila!
Yes?
Come here.
Look how he shuts his book with a bang. You've a great voice for frightening, Wondersmith. Yes?
Have you sat there in the sun long enough, cooing to each other like sick doves?
We're not.
Get in the house. Upstairs to your room and stay there. Your lover will bake alone in the sun. Get in.
Wondersmith, The joy's gone out of her face.
She'll laugh only when I laugh. Get in the house, Unila.
You're a fine stepfather, Wondersmith. Your daughter's lucky.
Stop it. We've business, Philomel.
So we have.
We made a bargain, Philomel. I have done my part of it. Have you done yours?
Yes, Hippie. My magic has trapped a soul for the doll. It's in a bottle. You say your part is done?
Yes. The paint is drying on the doll now. We will meet tonight at 8 in my shop.
Do our honored colleagues know? Coplon the honest jeweler and Oak Smith the cutthroat?
I've told them.
And we will test the doll tonight.
Yes.
It will be a rare sight, Wondersmith, to see a wooden mannequin come alive full of murder and wrath.
If the soul you've bottled is full of murder and wrath...
Do not worry, neighbor. My pick of murderous souls is vast and deep. Gallow birds, jailbirds, a whole nation of outlaws are on the waiting list.
And we'll be rich. And with the riches we'll have power.
Aye, Wondersmith, we'll be rich, albeit somewhat bloody.
Tonight, then, Philomel.
Tonight.
Philomel, answer it. It's after 8 o'clock. It must be there.
Coming. Patience, you dogs. I'm an old woman, not a young bird. So, you're here at last. Come in, Coplon. You too, Brother Oaksmith.
Is everything ready?
Where's Hippie?
Sit, friends. We will begin in a few minutes. Here's wine. Drink. I will be back in a moment.
I've brought some stones, Philomel. Rubies. We'll test the doll with them. Here.
Good. And you, Oaksmith?
The key to the bird store.
Splendid. You're a fine purse snatcher, boy.
Is that the doll?
Yes. Look.
Oh, a masterpiece.
Beautiful, Wondersmith. Beautiful. A magnificent little man with the face of a devil.
The sword in his hand is as sharp as a razor.
I have never fashioned anything as fine as this. And we will bring him alive with one of Philomel's souls and send him out into the world for victims.
That we choose.
Yes, that we choose. He will bring us back the rarest jewels. And he'll fight the very devil himself to do it.
An epic thief the size of a cat.
Let us test him now. Have you the soul, Philomel?
In this bottle. The soul of a scoundrel hung at dawn from a public gallows.
You seem uneasy, Philomel.
This is a restless and angry soul. He stirs in the bottle.
Let it loose upon the doll.
Soon.
Silence.
Huh? What is it, Hippie?
I heard something. In this hall, the step going by.
Your daughter, perhaps.
She wouldn't dare.
Oh, come, you're imagining things. There's no one here.
I'm not so sure.
We're only wasting time. The doll.
It sounded like a step.
Oh, shut the door. You're nervous.
All right. But I was sure that...
Loose the soul, Philomel.
Then put the rubies away and stand behind me. The soul will leap to the first figure it sees. And, well, I am a bit uneasy about the one I've captured. Be careful. Now then, I cover the doll and push the bottle under the covering. Loose the stopper and, unerring, sure with devilish art, possess this body, seize this heart, muscle and nerve and brittle bone. Make them all your very own.
Oh, it's moving under the covering.
Pull off the wrapping. Pull it off.
I'll do it. See?
Oh.
By the seven gods. It's alive. Alive.
Like you and I. See how it glares at us, turning its doll's head from side to side.
Oh.
Look. It bares its teeth at me.
The hate in its eyes when it glares at you, Philomel.
Beware its sword, Philomel.
Hippie, it is not a friendly doll.
That's the soul you gave it, Philomel.
It does not like me. Perhaps it wants the taste of blood, and I've the most of it here.
The key to the bird store, Philomel. I gave it to you.
So you did. Well, my bitter little foe, you shall have your taste of blood.
Oh, you'd better call back that soul, Philomel, until we get to the bird shop.
I think I'd better, too. Come, my friend. It's home for you. Better call back the soul. Relax the muscle. Release the bone. Give up this palace. Leave this home.
A light. It's black as pitch here.
Hey, wait. I've a candle.
Oh.
Hold the doll, Oaksmith, while I strike a match.
I have the doll, Wondersmith.
Just a minute.
Help! Murder!
What's that?
Strike the match, Wondersmith. Strike it.
There.
It's a parrot.
There's a watchdog of a bird for you.
Quick. Somebody might have heard. Give the doll his soul again, Philomel. Let's be done with this test.
Silence! Master! Silence, you feathered fool. To work. Cover the doll. The bottle now, and unerring, sure with devilish art. Possess this body. Seize this heart. Nerve and muscle and brittle bone. Make them all your very own.
Save the house, Master.
Quick! Put the rubies in the parrot's cage. And it's alive.
At first, Your Honor, the tiny doll glared murderously at Philomel, the fortune-teller. Even in the candlelight, I could see her grow pale. But the instant the doll saw the jewels, greed crept into its eyes. And nimbly, its tiny sword glittering in the candlelight, it ran across the tabletop, jumped to a shelf, and then, as graceful as a cat, leaped across to the parrot's cage. For a moment he hung there, the cage swinging back and forth, silently, back and forth. The parrot shouted at him, but the doll showed no signs of fear. He stared coldly, and with a thin, amused smile at the bird behind the bars. What happened then, Your Honor, happened in a twinkling. The doll flung the cage door back, and in he leaped, his sword flashing with a rapier speed. The parrot's wings frantically beat the air, and it screamed. Blood peered upon the bird's breast. The doll, like an Italian fencing master, danced about the frenzied bird, plunging his sword into it time and time again. All of us stood there, staring, open-mouthed, at the struggle in the cage, unaware that it was only the parrot screaming. It seemed to each of us that we could hear the din of some titanic battle, that we could see the dust of some distant armies locked in war. And then it was over in a flash. The bird screamed. It shuddered, and spasms racked its body. And then it fell to the floor of the cage. For a moment, the doll stood there, wild-eyed and panting. And then it bent, scooped up the rubies, and swung out of the cage. When it reached us, it dropped the jewels on the tabletop and watched Philomel.
Magnificent. Magnificent. Did you see him? Lord.
My doll's a success. A success.
Philomel, watch out.
Hippie! Hippie!
I've got him. Draw the soul out, quick. Quick.
Did you see? He lunged at her. The doll lunged at Philomel.
Draw out the soul. Draw out the soul.
Relax the muscle. Release the bone. Give up this palace. Leave this home.
The doll lunged at Philomel, the fortune teller? Yes, Your Honor. The doll had lunged at Philomel, the fortune teller. There was no question about it. The doll, or the soul that was in it, considered Philomel as his foe. At that time, Your Honor, the sword in the doll's hand was not poisoned. Ah, but later on, yes, later on. Silence. Will the court be quiet? Must I clear it? Now you may go on, Mr. Hippie. Continue with your confession regarding the murder of the fortune teller, Philomel. When we were done there in the bird shop, and we'd drawn the soul out of the doll in time to save Philomel, we separated. I took my doll, now stiff and wooden, back to my shop, placed it on a shelf, and began walking upstairs to bed. I didn't hear the voices until after I'd reached the first landing.
He left you here like this in the dark?
He always leaves me like this, Solon. I sit for hours in darkness. I cannot open the window. He nailed it shut.
I watched from the street many times, hoping you'd come to it.
I couldn't.
I know why now.
What shall I do, Solon? My life is a misery. He beats me, treats me like a slave, and hates me.
Come away with me, Zonila.
With you?
Yes. Listen to me, Zonila. All that has been said between us are the words in books I've read to you. They were meant for others, those words. But when I said them, I knew. I felt that they were mine. What are books to me, Zonila, but sources to find my thoughts of you in words?
Solon.
Don't look at me with such wonder and surprise in your eyes, Zonila. Is it a wonder that I should love you? Is it an incredible event that your name should ring like a joyous bell in my brain? For months I've watched your window, hoping to see you appear in it. For months, torturous days, I've loved you, Zonila, loved you, and spoke to you the words of others because I was afraid.
You love me, Solon? Me, a poor wretch?
No poor wretch to me, Zonila, but the reality of my dream, the personification of my hopes.
Me? Me?
My love's as wide as the ocean's wide, Zonila, and as deep and as strong and firm as the iron mountains.
Solon,
Yes.
it's so hard to say. So hard.
Say it, Zonila. Say it.
Dear Solon,
You're crying.
because a miracle has happened. A miracle.
Zonila.
I've loved you from the first time I heard your voice. And I thought you were only kind, showing pity. And I needed even that. I never thought you'd love me in my misery.
Zonila, come away with me. Something is happening here in this house. It's evil. I felt it. You must come away with me.
Wherever you want to go, Solon.
Will you come now?
Yes. Father.
And where will you take her?
Mr. Hippy.
In what volume is this chapter, Bookworm? Is the escape all planned out for you by some other writer?
I don't need their help.
Yet you used them to steal her affection from me.
Affection? What affection?
From her father's loving bosom you would steal her, his light of life.
Leave us alone.
I'm the brute, eh? The beast who treads on delicate feelings, is that it?
We're leaving her together.
Without my blessing?
Without your curse. Come, Zonila.
Stop. Leave the girl alone, cockerel, or I shall smash you even more than I planned. Do you think, fool, that I shall let her go? After all these years of crossing me, taunting me, do you think I shan't have my vengeance?
Solon, Solon.
Cry to your miserable lover.
Get out of the doorway.
I have plans for you, Zonila. You shall play nursemaid and mother to a doll I've fashioned. A more murderous child you'll never have. It's a gift I've carved for you to amuse you when you're lonely or to haunt your dreams. And I've a name for that doll. A fine name. One which will dry your tears when the real owner of it is no more. It shall be called Solon.
Get away from the door.
The comedy is over now, Bookworm.
Solon, he's coming towards you.
That's an alert girl you'll never wed, Bookworm. Come here.
Don't, Solon, don't.
No, cockerel, we'll test you.
Solon! Solon! Solon!
Quiet. You may proceed. I had to strike the girl to quiet her, Your Honor. And when she was still, I bound up Solon, slung him across my shoulder like a sack of meal, and carried him downstairs to the shop. A plan was already formed in my mind, but it needed the help of the fortune-teller, Philomel. I made sure the shop was locked, and leaving Solon there, lying on the floor, I went out. The hour was 9:30. It took me only a few minutes to reach the fortune-teller's door.
Who is it?
Open. It's I, Hippy the Wondersmith.
Coming. I'm an old woman. You knock like the very devil's behind you. Come in. What brings you here now?
The doll's soul. I need it.
Ah? And why?
I've a task for him. Another test, and it must be done tonight.
What test, Wondersmith?
A human one.
Solon, the bookworm.
Will you bring the soul?
No.
What? Why? Why not?
I am not anxious to be carved like roast pork, Wondersmith, by the little devil. He hates me. We were badly met, it seems.
But I need the soul now.
No.
I'll give you half my share of what the doll brings us later.
And if I've long been buried by then?
Philomel.
No. Hippy, I must trap another soul.
I won't wait. I won't. Solon must die now.
Hippy!
But I wasn't leaving as early as that, Your Honor. Outside the fortune-teller's door, I waited. And when I heard her creak out of the room, I stole in. I knew where she kept the bottled soul. I found it, slipped it in the pocket, and stole out down to my workshop again. Solon was awake now, and as I came in, he watched me. I was pleased that he would be aware of what was going to occur.
Who is it? Who's there?
Awake, bookworm? Good. You shall be my audience. Look, do you see this bottle? Answer. I listen.
Let me go, hippie.
Soon. You shan't be in this world much longer. This bottle.
Let Zonila go then, if not me.
It's Zonila I want. It's you I've no use for, bookworm. Look, there's a soul trapped in this bottle. The fit's a tight one. Listen how he stirs.
Hippie.
What?
What do you want? I'll give you anything.
The riches of books? The wealth of fool's wisdom? Have you any gold?
No, but...
Then we will go on. I have a doll, bookworm. Let me show you why I am called the Wondersmith. Look, isn't he a very devil of a fellow?
Oh.
And the sword, it's sharp. Small, but life, they say, hangs only by a thin thread. Yet, to make sure, bookworm, I shall poison the sword.
You're mad, hippie.
Mad or not, I shall kill you. There. The sword's primed. Now watch me.
Oh.
I, too, can create life. I shall cover the doll. Now, if you please, I shall place this diamond ring upon your chest. My doll needs an incentive. No, don't move.
Have you pity?
Pity is a disease of fools. I've done without it.
But no man...
Stop. Take your ethics to the grave with you. Now, the moment's ready. Watch sharply. I put the bottle beneath the wrapping. Loose the stopper and... Unerring, sure with devilish art, possess this body, seize this heart, nerve and muscle and brittle bone, make them all your very own. Look, it moves. Off with the covering, off. See how he glares. There's your victim there.
Epium, once.
Philomel.
You fool,
Philomel, the doll, Philomel.
Stop it, hippie! Stop it!
I can still see it all clearly, Your Honor. The shop, Solon on the floor, and the look on the doll's face when he caught sight of Philomel. That was the time I first noticed the gold brooch on the front of Philomel's dress. The doll raced across the floor with his sword held high. Philomel's face fell and then grew rigid with terror. She tried to back away, but the doll kept lunging and striking. And I could see the tiny sword sink in each time. Philomel gasped and shrieked with pain each time the sword struck. Suddenly, the fortune-teller tottered, and her great body crashed to the floor. There was a sharp splintering of wood. I saw a tiny sword go skittering across the floor. And then I knew the doll I had fashioned, Your Honor, had been crushed, and the soul in it freed. I tried to raise Philomel. She was still alive.
Oh, I'm sick, Wondersmith. Sick. The sword. You poisoned it, didn't you?
Yes, Philomel.
Can you do anything?
No.
You fool. Fool, I warned you. The doll would have turned on you. Where is he?
Crushed. You crushed him.
So I gave him his freedom after all. He was an angry soul, stubborn for his freedom. The bookworm?
Alive, but not for long.
Let him alone, Wondersmith.
Never.
You're purchasing a bitter afterlife, as bad as mine will be. Oh, the pain. The pain. No riches and no power for us, Wondersmith. We'll go to the grave, penniless like all the others. Light, it's getting dark.
Philomel.
I say, let there be light. For I am forewarned of the region I shall awake in. Wondersmith?
Yes.
You are my executor. You will find neither gold nor jewels, but a crystal which you must destroy. Where are you?
Here, Philomel.
You will find it in... Oh, a light. Strike a light, someone. Wondersmith. I must have a light.
Philomel.
Huh? You're leaving so soon. Wondersmith. Well, then. Good night, neighbor. Good night. It was a fine evening. Good night. Good night.
And she was dead, Your Honor. And for a little while, I sat there in the silence, holding her head in my arms. I think, and believe me, Your Honor, it is important that you do. I think I loved the fortune teller. In a little while, I got up. The young man was staring at the door. In it, pale, drawn, filled with terror, stood Zonila, a pistol shaking in her hand. I could have taken it from her without danger, Your Honor. But what was the use? Philomel was dead, and I knew it was the end. How can I explain it? The rest you know. How Solon and Zonila brought me to the police. How I was brought to trial. I am here because I am guilty. I beg no mercy from the court. Only, Your Honor, make it soon. Soon.
From the time-worn pages of the past, we have brought you the story, The Doll. Bellkeeper, toll the bell.
That was The Doll from the Weird Circle here on the Mysterious Old Radio Listening Society podcast. Once again, I'm Eric.
I'm Tim.
And I'm Joshua.
That was Tim's pick. Explain yourself.
The start of this journey was that I felt like I'd been living in a lot more contemporary kind of podcast for the things I was listening to. I wanted to harken back to something a little older, Witch's Tale, Hermit's Cave, or in this case, Weird Circle. Weird Circle, intrigued by. I don't know that we've ever really heard a Weird Circle episode about, wow, that is a great episode of radio. They range from a little wincy to, oh, pretty good.
And they're adaptations that never credit the source material.
That's true.
Yeah.
But the concept was very much we're going to keep these older stories alive, which rings a little familiar to me of like, hey, there's these old stories that are really good and people don't know about them. Well, some people who are smarter than me do, but broadly people don't know about them. And this one jumped out at me in particular just because when I was browsing, it was suddenly so fun to have these characters who are the fortune teller, the Wondersmith, the cut purse. It's this weird fantastical world right off the bat that I was like, this is super fun.
Wondersmith is when Super Friends went and jumped the shark, when they added Wondersmith to the
yes.
cartoon
that was
Super
Morrissey's
Friends.
secret identity, yes.
Yeah, right. There's a weird thing.
Is it a circle?
Yeah. It's a weird thing in the circle.
How are we going to weirdly square this weird circle?
There's a thing that happens in contemporary, in the past, all the time, where if you're a director or a writer or performers will take a story that takes place in the old country or 100 years ago, and they have this way of portraying people and humans as, I can't think of the right word to describe it.
It's very formal and blank, kind of. It's unemotional. It's very understated.
Yeah. It's right. It's just weird.
As if people didn't feel anything.
Right. And angry.
Yeah.
Really angry. Stern and angry all the time. And like, that's your concept of how the world was back then. And it's not just
I just assume it's like, well, there's three of you. One of you is going to die in the next week. So,
well, maybe they were that angry and
nobody
stern.
get attached.
Right. Nobody get attached to anything and look out for yourself. But I could find a number of examples of this style of recreating history
every weird circle, for
example. Weird circle, for example. And it's really weird. And I know it's weird circle. And then you look at something like Gunsmoke, which humanizes something from 100 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, and it doesn't assume that everybody walked around in this weird tropey. It's hard to listen to.
I think it depends on the story.
I think this borders on like folktale.
Yeah.
More than...
But even folk tales, why did they think people back then didn't act like people?
One of my qualms with the story is the decision to use the court scene as a framing device. It immediately grounds you in too much reality.
Mm-hmm.
It makes some of the stylized and fantastic elements seem sillier than they need to feel if we were brought
in a
into
fairy
the
tale
story at that point, because I think it should be told as a Grimm's fairy tale.
It was interesting to me that and I still don't have a grasp on it well, I guess I sort of do. So this guy is on trial for a murder that he is suddenly now confessing to, but he claimed to be confessing to it so that this bookworm Solon didn't get accused of it. But he didn't seem to be, like, nobody said that Solon was being accused of it. And I sort of get it. I was tracking the fortune teller's death of, as I try to right my wrongs, as I'm dying, I'm not going to a dark place, I'm seeing a light. I think that's, if I was tracking that correct.
Yeah, she has an extremely long death scene, yes. But I think you're right, that's the connection, is that he learned from her.
Yes, that I can clear my conscience.
It's a deathbed confession, essentially.
Yes. But in that, he describes his daughter as this constant pain in my side, this horrible creature, that there's nothing until you actually meet her to contradict that that's what you should expect, is this horrible person, which seemed out of step with the rest of the story to me in a way that I found interesting.
Yeah, it's basically, she's just willful, and she
doesn't like being locked into her room.
I have to raise her and pay for her. Like, it just seems like he's mad about being a stepfather.
There seemed to be
he says
slight hint of so long as I never let her have any contact, then eventually when she gets old enough, I'll marry her.
I didn't think about that, but yeah.
Here's what I take most umbrage with. It's 1944. It's Christmas Eve. You're hoping that war's coming to an end and so-and-so comes home okay, and screw you, weird circle. This is what you're giving me on Christmas Eve? The doll that comes to life? Thanks.
As a kid, I wanted dolls that came to life, even if they had poison swords and were stealing jewels. That'd be awesome.
That's
this is
the
a
best
terrible
part
Christmas
of
Eve gift.
This story, I think, is
that they aired it on Christmas Eve.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to put a pin in it. I want to finish our discussion of the radio show, but I did read the story, and I'm just going to tell you this much. This is like an episode of Father Knows Best.
Oh, really?
Compared to the actual story. But I really love the scene with the doll murdering the parrot. Because it moves.
This is your job, Joshua.
From moment to moment, it's hilarious, but then it's also really disturbing, and then it's hilarious again, and you just never know exactly where you're going to land. I think part of it is one great sound effect is the clicking sound for the wooden doll.
Oh, it's great.
And for some reason, that click is just really distressing. And they make the smart choice with the parrot, because the parrot could be more hilarious than it is. What it says is something appropriate to the scenario, right? It says,
yes. I also just love that this guy has trained his parrot to scream for help.
Yeah. Murderer, murderer! Because if it were being stabbed to death by a doll and just being like, Polly wants a cracker!
Cracker! Was it Paul Frees?
I know. I
probably
highly
not.
was Paul Frees.
Paul Frees is above these parrots. That, I thought, worked well, ultimately. I don't know if it worked the way they wanted it to work, but that is just... We've talked about that very thin line between comedy and horror sometimes, and this is one where they were drunkenly weaving back and forth across that line. The description of the tiny sword being plunged over and over again into Philomel, the fortune teller, that's pretty grotesque. It's a strange moment. I can't decide if I like it or don't, where before Philomel dies, she starts to say there's some mysterious crystal that he must destroy.
Yeah,
and then
some other soul she's got trapped.
Yeah, that seems to be the implication, but it's unclear, and she doesn't really finish her sentence. And I don't know if it was sloppy writing or I liked it because it seemed enigmatic.
She ends with, we'll just say, hello, neighbor.
What a great night, or
yeah, again, that's a little out of character with the rest of the story, but it's really striking.
Yeah, I mean, what didn't work for me is the sudden professing of love on the part of
that was
Hippie.
so weird.
Right.
And I need you to know I loved her.
Yeah, there was no reason for it.
Yeah.
None. It doesn't explain anything. It's nothing to do with the narrative at all.
Unless he was trying to gain the judge's sympathy, but then a couple lines later he says, I expect no leniency from you, Your Honor. So it's a strange bit of writing there. And Zolina had a gun the entire time. That was what I thought. Why did you just pop this sucker ages ago?
Right?
Wondersmith's daughter.
Wondersmith's daughter. There's a show.
Yeah.
I did come up with another T-shirt I think we need to have made out of this. It just amused me, and it might just be me. It's when the Wondersmith knocks on Philomel's door and says, "It is I, Hippie the Wondersmith." That would make a great T-shirt. No context.
So tell us about the book.
Oh, you guys. The story is so much darker and weirder and on such an epic scale and just horrifically xenophobic. I mean, I can't tell you how, in like the first couple pages, and then it lets it go, but the first couple pages are just the Jews, the Germans, Italians, and then, though, the motivation for it is that all the bad guys are gypsies. And I know that's an insulting term, but I'm using it in the context of the story because they were angry from being outsiders. It takes place in this poor immigrant neighborhood in New York, and that's why we've got this setting with all these wild shops and things like that. It's this sort of bohemian section of the poor part of the city. And their whole motivation is they just hate Christians, is what they call them in here. And I think what the story means by that is that the middle class to upper class, and just Americans who are successful and who leave these immigrants to live in squalor here. And so the entire plot is they don't design one doll. They design an army of dolls to disperse on Christmas Eve to kill all the children.
Wow. Wow.
All of them. And Philomel is not just a fortune teller. She is
Hitler,
a midwife. And the implication being that these souls, because she's got a lot of them, are the result of miscarriages, abortions. These are the demented souls of infants that she's putting in these dolls.
Want to stab and poison her over and over again.
Yeah, then they also have this weird sidebar where one of the criminals they bring in to the plot with them has a shop that sells glass eyes. But he also has these magical powers, so he has a large glass eye that he can set in secret places and has the second sight through this eye and can see what's going on. And so he puts it out in the hallway to make sure that the daughter doesn't sneak up on him when they're having evil conversations. And I bring it up because it's important later. But there's still the love plot between the bookseller and the daughter. Of course, the bookseller, though, is a deformed hunchback because... Of course he is.
Right.
And his hatred of her is explained because she's a daughter of a Hungarian nobleman who he kidnapped because this nobleman introduced brandy to the hippie's actual biological son, and he died of drink. And so he tortures her as some form of vengeance. Oh, and she's also by day forced to go on the street with her organ and monkey, and she's an organ grinder.
Wow.
So there's also a little monkey in this.
Can you imagine sitting in the writing room and it's like, we got to cut some stuff. It was like, don't touch the monkey and the organ.
So the bird murdering scene is from this story, but they released like an army into a bird shop, and it's this graphic description of these tiny dolls coming in and just murdering every kind of bird imaginable. It's like a page worth of bird murder.
The fact that in the past there was such a thing as a bird shop.
Yeah.
Not a pet store, a bird shop.
And then the whole thing ends in this very Tarantino-esque craziness where the monkey frees the hunchback and they're sneaking out, but they step on the eye, which alerts the villains to their presence, who are drunk, by the way, because it's Christmas Eve and they're just drunk on their own victory. They're drinking a bunch of port, which they imagine is the blood of children. But the scream when they step on the eye startles Philomel, who drops the bottle of souls. The souls get out, go into the dolls, and the dolls swarm all of them and stab them over and over and over again with their poison swords, which causes their bodies to swell and bloat, and they're screaming, and they fling the dolls into the fire, and the whole house bursts into flames.
Wow.
And they all die in a conflagration of dolls and poison, and yeah.
I can't believe what a thin little gruel of that story we got.
Can we vote on Joshua's retelling? Classic. That was much more interesting and more fun than that.
But I get the idea of scaling that back. I obviously trying to give a different motivation than just this sort of racial hatred. That's good.
Can you imagine if they kept the part about releasing these to kill all the children on Christmas Eve and then aired this on Christmas Eve?
I so want to adapt this, guys. It is a wonderful, heartwarming Christmas. It all goes wrong in the end. They get their comeuppance.
The toys, they win.
Tim, there's got to be more. I don't mean to take all of this time away from you and the story.
No, and I know that Weird Circle, broadly, this is about the level they do.
Yeah.
They were an early show. The main focus was on sort of keeping these old stories alive, not so much of being this great technical accomplishment in audio theater. And this one just jumped out at me because there were so many odd little things in there that surprised me, which is always, I enjoy a surprise. I mean, the scene that really made me think, I got to bring this one, is when all four of these criminals are getting together and just like, I brought a soul, I brought a doll, I brought some jewels. That it's this weird supervillain team that has gotten together to
Wonder Dog.
Yeah. And then to commit weird crimes. Let's go kill a bird.
Yep. It is a weird circle of story.
But to your point, I do think Weird Circle is a bit like Hall of Fantasy in that it was a throwback in 1944. They were doing an old-fashioned style then that was about 10 years out of date.
Yes, I think that sounds right.
It feels more like The Witch's Tale.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Than like what was being heard on Suspense in 1944.
Yep. This reminds me of A Witch's Tale, Weird Circle, Hermit's Cave. All of it seems very similar.
Yeah, so in the end, all of the flaws that are being pointed out, like, yep.
There's that moment where they say the doll wants to go after Philomel because she's so full of blood. She has the most blood of all of us. And then I was like, what does that mean? But then later, she falls at him and crushes him to death. So I wonder if that was like a polite way of saying she was just huge or like bloated like a tick.
Bloated like a tick. Well, they had to burn her out of a guy's scalp with a cigarette.
Yeah, you don't just want to pull her off because the head will come. Yeah.
My dad, this is the 70s, burned ticks out of my scalp once with his cigarette. True story.
You sure there was ticks?
It works for moles. You know, any
he said,
weird
come here,
discoloration.
grabbed my head, took a drag, got it nice and coal hot, and went and burned a couple ticks out of that were in my head when we were camping.
Yeah, I will say beats Lyme disease. But
yeah. All right, can we vote?
Sure, we can vote.
Yeah, I don't like anything in this. I get what you're saying. For me, it was work. And mainly because it's just, the acting is just so over the top weird. That style of formality of, human interaction. And I get it. It's a fairy tale, just not aimed at me. And it was weird, which may be their point, considering it's called Weird Circle. No, doesn't stand the test of time. But I will say thank you for bringing it.
I largely agree with Eric, but I think I approach Weird Circle in a different way because I know with Weird Circle, it's always going to be a bit of a curate's egg. It's not going to be knock it out of the park amazing. They do the one thing that they do. They do literary adaptations, and at least 3 or 4 of their choices are going to be weird to bad. But as someone who adapts old stories, I think you mentioned this too, Tim, it's really fascinating from that point of view. It definitely does not stand the test of time, but I definitely was not bored. It's that thing where each new thing comes up and you're like, whoa, what? And it's really fun to listen to.
Can I say that I think that this could be rewritten in really a cool story? I'm sorry I didn't add that in.
I have that recorded now, so when I turn in my...
I like the idea of
murdering
capturing
all children on
not
Christmas
that
Eve
part.
Script. Oh, too late.
Capturing souls and releasing them into an inanimate doll or a puppet. All right, that's called Pinocchio.
Yeah, I mean this.
But I think that's an interesting concept, and I think there's something here that could be done well.
I won't call this a classic. I won't say this stands the test of time. It is probably being generous to say it's historically significant. But I had a great time, and to have learned all these things about the original source material now is like it's even worse and better. Yeah, I'm on board for adapting an army of toys slaughtering birds on Christmas Eve and trying to wipe out the children of the town.
Of the town? No, of the world.
The world?
All the children.
Of New York.
Oh, okay.
So typical New York. The world.
All right, Tim, tell them stuff.
Hey, please go visit ghoulishdelights.com, home of this podcast. You'll find other episodes there. You can let us know what you thought of this episode and any of our episodes. You can vote in polls, leave comments. You can send us messages. You know, if you say, please do not adapt that story in any media. You can also link to our social media pages. You can go to our Threadless store, get some Mysterious Old Radio Listening Society swag, a tote, perhaps, a hoodie. I think we have hoodies. You can also go to our Patreon page.
Yes, go to patreon.com/themorals and support this podcast. Become a member of the Mysterious Old Radio Listening Society. If you become a member, you get all sorts of perks. We have monthly members-only podcasts. We have a monthly happy hour where we get together with patrons on Zoom, and we talk about, you guessed it, old-time radio. We also do a book club on Zoom where we definitely won't be reading the Wondersmith because I spoiled it all. I'm sorry, guys. But maybe down the road we'll revisit it. Yes, and then in addition to Patreon, if you were like, I don't want to commit to Patreon, maybe I'll just give you guys $20 out of the blue. Well, you can do that by going to ghoulishdelights.com and hitting the donate button. We are currently trying to raise funds for a new computer and maybe some other technology that we are in need of. So if you could do that, it would be great. And thank you to everybody who already has. You're awesome.
As of right now, as of the time of this recording, we want to say thank you to Bill, Brian, Anne-Marie, Linda, Shane, Mark, DBA, whoever is the true name behind that mysterious nom de plume, Jeffrey, Micah, Ryan, Roberta, Catherine, Carolyn, Loretta, Lori, and if you, we recorded this weeks ago at least, so if you have donated since then and not heard your name, we will get your name and add it to the list on future podcasts to say thank you, because we very much appreciate this.
I didn't hear Mr. Apple's name. Billy McIntosh. Hey, if you'd like to see us performing live, the Mysterious Old Radio Listening Society Theater Company does recreations of classic old-time radio drama and a lot of our own original work live on stage. We've been doing it for about 7 years as of this podcast recording. And we perform somewhere every month, sometimes even more than once a month. So you can go to ghoulishdelights.com or mysteriousOldRadioListeningSociety.com, and there you will see what we're performing, where we're performing, when, and how to get tickets to our live audio theater shows. If you can't make it to them, you can become a Patreon, because one of the perks of being a Patreon is we film them and we give that filming of our live shows to our Patreons to watch. So there's another way you can see us. So become a Patreon. What's coming up next?
Next is your pick, Eric.
What? I didn't pick anything. Oh, wait. Hold on. I know. How about if we do, what's it called?
Double Murder?
Double Murder. That'd be good. From Big Town. Until then.
Look out!
Wait, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. What show?
Big Town!